We welcome you to hour number 2 of this Tuesday, live right here on the early line. Maybe it's a Tuesday in the calendar, but it's the final day of 2024. New Year's Eve is what we call it, or in other words, a day, read the shirt once again, for college football, period. Yeah, that's right. 5 college football games at the FBS level on this final day of 2024. 4 in bowl season and our 5th and final to ring in a new year. It's the start of the quarterfinal round of the college football playoff. The Fiesta Bowl tonight out in the desert between the 3-seed Boise State and the 6-seed Penn State. Joe, so much to get to here in this second hour. We set the stage for the final 8 teams still in the chase for a national championship in the first ever 12-team college football playoff. We will also talk more about the NFL, getting you ready for week number 18. Golf season starts this Saturday on the PGA Tour. Saturday starts this Thursday on the PGA Tour with the Century Championship out on the Hawaiian Islands. Keith Stewart will be back on the show. So much to get into here in this second hour.
Yeah, a little something for everyone, Ben, as we look to turn the page on 2024, welcome in 2025. Exciting stuff. And we still have, 4 weeks of college football, 3 weeks. So I'm all for it. Let's go.
We're not done, man. 3 weeks from yesterday is the national championship game. There's a lot of time now in the biggest field and the most teams with the most wins necessary to claim a national championship in college football in the history of this sport. So thus, history continues on this Tuesday night, on New Year's Eve, to ring in 2025 before a triple header of CFP action comes your way tomorrow on New Year's Day. It is New Year's Eve. It is a party. That will be the case out in Glendale, Arizona, for the Fiesta Bowl between Penn State and Boise State. It's the first game of the quarterfinal round. There you see the matchups. It starts with the Fiesta Bowl tonight. Then we go to the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Arizona State and Texas, our largest spread of the CFP quarterfinal round. And then 2 heavyweight showdowns to end out New Year's Day. The granddaddy of them all, the rematch between Oregon and Ohio State in a Sugar Bowl in the Big Easy. Would love to visit that city sometime, between Georgia and Notre Dame. What a round we have in this historic bracket, the first ever 12-team college football playoff. Joe, I think the natural question as we look at the bracket, after we saw blowouts in our 4 opening round games, every game decided by at least 2 touchdowns on campus for the first time, where home teams took advantage. Home teams booked as a favorite. Everybody laying at least a touchdown in those home favorites were a perfect 4-0 against the spread with an average margin of victory of 19.3 points per game. So again, I think the natural question begs, will the quarterfinal round be closer, including our first 2 games starting tonight in the Fiesta Bowl?
Unfortunately, they won't. And I think they won't here, Ben, because we've talked about it. I mean, listen, I do think you have 12 teams that deserve to be there, the most deserving. I still would like to get to a situation where we just have the 12 best teams in the country, but that's going to take a little time. And I think that this is where the seeding comes into play, Ben, because much like what we talked about last week in the blowouts and how is Ohio State an 8 seed, and that's what you get Oregon for being the number 1 seed at this point. I think they will eventually get the seeding correctly. But until then, we've got blowouts ready to go here. I mean, there are levels to this, Ben. We've talked about it, right? The SMUs of the world are not the Penn States of the world. And Boise State, once again, great year, deserving to be here. Number 3 seed, but congratulations. Your gift is that you get to take on the number 5 defense in the nation. And you're going to get blown out like most teams usually do, who are not of this caliber here. I mean, Penn State's averaging 38 points a game here, Ben. The offense is humming. They're great stacking the box up against the run. I don't think Boise State can compete, but I do think they can score enough to help us get this thing flying over the total at the Fiesta Bowl. Most Fiesta Bowls are usually shootouts. I don't think this one's going to be any different, only I think Penn State will eventually cover this game, but I think we fly over the total as well.
And that's been a big part of it as well, Joe. For a Nittany Lions team, when expected to win a game under James Franklin, they often do, and they are pretty darn good. I caution everybody, please, 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 it's probably not going to work with some of the takes that we will see tonight on social media. But remember how the college football playoff has always played out. Even our semifinal games in the 10-year history of the 4-team format of the CFP were decided on average by 17.9 points per game, with only 7 of the 20 even decided by a single score. Our national championship games in the decade of the CFP, the two best teams in college football squaring off, decided by 21.4 points per game, with half of them decided by at least 3 touchdowns. Blowouts in this unique and wacky sport of college football, even at the upper echelon, have happened, do happen, and will continue to happen. Now, Joe, to your point on fixing the format, we've already been seeing reports, namely from Action Network's Brett McMurphy yesterday, that the College Football Playoff Committee and the College Football Playoff Board of Governors, if you will, is already considering a change to this format for next year, where you would still guarantee bids to the college football playoff for the 5 highest ranked conference champs. So you would have that group of 5 input and making sure you get at least one ACC and Big 12 team into this field, but not necessarily opening round buys for the 4 highest ranked conference champs. I think we can all agree that's pretty good. I think some of those teams like Arizona State and Boise State, or maybe even Clemson, whoever earns those automatic bids to the college football playoff, might rather host an on-campus game than play in a bowl game where they're still catching double digits. That would be just my estimation. I do think this quarterfinal round will be closer, and I think we're certainly going to see that in our final 2 games tomorrow night, that being Oregon and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and Georgia and Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Both spreads, 2.5 points in favor of the Buckeyes, 1.5 points now only in favor of Georgia. So let's start with the Fiesta Bowl. We'll go game by game. We'll break all of this down where we see things fit throughout our next 3 hours. But, Joe, it just should be noted that when you look at these spreads, we've got 2 that are at least double digits, and we've got 2 that is less than a field goal. Boise State is catching 11.5 from Penn State tonight in the Fiesta Bowl out in Glendale, Arizona.
And I just think it's a terrible matchup here for Boise State, because the defense of Penn State allowing 279 yards of total offense a game, allowing barely 100 yards per game rushing, which is the strength of Boise State. I think it's simple. Shut down Ashton Genty, and guess what? Boise State's going to have a hard time in this game. I think the defensive side of the ball is the big difference maker. Penn State, number 5 offense in the country, and the offense averaging 38 a game here, Ben. They can run, they can throw with efficiency. This game could get out of hand in a hurry. And by the way, Penn State and Franklin will not take their foot off the gas in any way, shape, or form if given the opportunity.
They don't do that, but Boise State is very familiar with this setting out in the desert in Arizona. They have played in 3 previous Fiesta Bowls, including one of the great upsets this sport has ever seen back to start 2007. More from the college football playoff next. Your college football playoff quarterfinal preview live right here on New Year's Eve on the early line on SportsGrid. We start the quarters tonight at the Fiesta Bowl. It's the 3-seed Boise State, the champions of the Mountain West, taking on the 6-seed Penn State. That would be James Franklin's Nittany Lions. Boise has only been an underdog once this year. They were catching 3 scores inside Autzen Stadium against the Ducks. Of course, they kept that game incredibly close. Oregon needed a last-second field goal to escape with a win. Ashton Genty, 192 yards on the ground that day against the Ducks. needs only a $132 tonight to break Barry Sanders' record. Now, again, I just have to say this as a student of history of college football. Barry Sanders rushed for 2,628 yards in 11 games in 1988. If you add on even the bowl game for the Pokes, that record is 2850. So, yeah, Ashton Jeanty in his 14th game of the year could catch Barry tonight, but know what the actual record is. Not discrediting Ashton Jeanty. He has had a historic season. He is going to end more than likely with the second most rushing yards in a single season in the history of college football. Joe, now we go to our next game in the quarterfinal round. It also features double digits. That is Arizona State in the Peach Bowl, the champions of the Big 12, earning that opening round bye, taking on the top at-large team, the runner-ups in the SEC. That would be Texas. Texas was the largest favorite of the opening round, laying 2 touchdowns at close against Clemson. Texas is the largest favorite in the quarterfinal round, laying 12.5 points against the Sun Devils. Texas covered, winning by 14 against Clemson in the opening round. Might the Longhorns do the same here in the quarterfinal round?
I hate the matchup, Farrah. I think it's just a terrible matchup for the Sun Devils. Now, Clemson, to their credit, Klubnik there, they could throw the ball, and that's how they ended up moving the ball on Texas. Arizona State is all about running it with Scatterbo. Texas, 10th in the country against the rush, allowing 104.2 rushing yards per game. The 13 teams that the Sun Devils have faced this season have an average total defensive rank of 76. Texas is the 3rd ranked defense in the country overall. And by the way, Jordan Tyson not playing, the number 1 receiver here for Arizona State, which means how are you beating them? And they can't get pressure on Quinn Ewers. We all saw Quinn Ewers is a different quarterback if you can get into his face. That's not what the Sun Devils defensively do. They rank 100th in the country in sacks per game. Everything here points to this being advantage Texas. If they can't run on this Texas defense, this game is also a blowout, unfortunately.
So Clemson threw for 336 against the Longhorns in Austin in the opening round. Texas entered that game allowing just 146 passing yards per. They were the best secondary in all of college football. I do believe that Arizona State is going to have to run the football effectively. And I think they have the guy in Cam Scatterbo who can do exactly that. I also believe they have the head coach in Kenny Dillingham that came to ASU after being the offensive play caller at Oregon that will design a scheme to keep this game close. I do think Arizona State can stay within this number, but that's a big if on Cam Scatterbo having the game of his life. He's had 7 of 12 games that he's played in this year for ASU where he has had at least 180 scrimmage yards. He will need that and then some against Texas. Arizona State's doing a lot of talking. Don't love that because Texas is sitting there and saying, what a great year for the Sun Devils. We wish them the best. That is what you say before you bludgeon somebody when you know they are better, when you are better than them. I will just say, double-digit spreads in our first 2 games, less than a field goal in our final 2. Oregon and Ohio State in the rematch in the Rose Bowl. Your classic Pac-12 Big Ten matchup in Pasadena under the San Gabriel Mountains. 2.5-point spread in favor of Ohio State. The Sugar Bowl in the nightcap on New Year's Day out in New Orleans. Joe is basically becoming a pick'em before our very eyes. It opened briefly with Notre Dame as a slight favorite. It quickly flipped to Georgia as the favorite. They laid as many as 2.5. You can see it there. It is a pick'em right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Joe, of those 2 games, the Rose between Oregon and Ohio State, the Sugar between Georgia and Notre Dame, which game is closer and more competitive?
They're both serious coin flip games, Ben. It's kind of crazy. I do think in both of those games, totals are probably where the value is. Good luck trying to trying to keep the scoring down between Oregon and Ohio State. In fact, I'd even look at the first half over, given the amount of time Oregon's had to prep for this game, and given the way Ohio State came out firing against Tennessee. They're going to need to do that again. Ohio State doesn't want to have to come from behind like they did in the first game the entire day. I would look at the first half over as well, but to me, ultimately, it's going to come down to the final 2-3 minutes, just like the first one did. Hopefully, there'll be a lot more points, and we have already cashed the over in it. But I do think Notre Dame has a really good chance here of walking away with a victory and possibly playing for a national championship. They're the dog I would look at if they are even considered a dog at this point.
So when you look at those national championship odds, it's a 6-1 price on Notre Dame to win that title, improving because it is basically a pick'em. Joe, we have 8 teams left in the hunt for that national championship in the college football playoff. Before we start the quarterfinals tonight, who would you bet on to win a national championship?
I don't mind Notre Dame. I really don't. I think that they're kind of the forgotten ones here. And while everyone loves the SEC and the Big Ten, yeah, I would pay attention to Notre Dame. And I think they should actually roll Georgia, I think, rather easily in this one.
It will be interesting. Gunnar Stockton makes his first career start for Georgia with a rush defense outside of the Texas game that has been as bad as we have seen in Athens in the last 5 years. More on the early line up next.